All right. Hello, everyone. We appreciate you clicking on this and watching this short video. I think the reason why we wanted to put this little podcast together, we're making a pretty big change on our winter wheat seed this fall. We're glad to announce we're using PreCede cereals on all the winter wheat seed. If any of you watched my winter wheat presentation going through varieties, if you made it through the whole presentation, at the end of it, I really talked about seed treats, trial results. I think that was the reason that really solidified why we decided to use PreCede on all our winter wheat seed. I think in our winter wheat trial in Genesee, that was Encore, seeded really late last fall, seeded on recrop. Really want to put our seed treat, mostly our fungicide packages, through a pretty rigorous test. If we have ideal growing conditions, that's sometimes where we don't see the seed treats really play that important role. We tested a lot of different nutrition, biological products we do every year. But in Genesee, we saw a 3.8 bushel yield gain with the PreCede. Interesting, Shannen, you just finished cutting all of our spring wheat trials. Of course, I think we had 25, 30 different treatments there in the spring wheats we were looking at. We had that in Genesee, Colfax, and Oakdale. Interesting there, we saw PreCede. We picked up, once again, 3.8 bushel. Really want to invite Carmine in. Carmine, I knew you since you were in my oldest son's class. I think grew up in Genesee. I knew you, I think, when you were about 6 years old. So it's funny how life works. And, 25 years later, here we are, becoming a partner, working with you, with a lot of your products that your company has to offer. Carmine, that's why we invited you here. Just tell the audience what, all the benefits that's in this package.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kyle. So I'll start. My name's Carmine Tyler. I'm sure most people have seen me or heard my name or yelled my name in maybe negative context. We'll see. But, so grew up in Genesee. Right now today, work for ATP Crop Nutrition based out of Canada, cover Washington, Oregon, Idaho, as well as the surrounding states. So basically all the West is really what I am tasked to cover. Been around FMC, UPL, been in the area, definitely not new to agriculture, definitely not new to the area and the crops grown in the area. But yeah, exciting to talk to you guys here about PreCede today. Give you guys a quick rundown what PreCede is. So it's going to be our what I would say our flagship. PreCede is our flagship seed treat product. We've obviously offer multiple, varieties of it, if you will, whether it's a canola or a rhizo, all formulated specifically for different cropping systems. Cereal product that that you guys tested for us and kind of took a hard look at is basically going to be 2 biostimulant pieces, a carbon source, a plant extract, and then a micronutrient package. So we're utilizing the biostimulants to drive rooting and kind of gene manipulation within the plant. So we're basically telling the plant to do certain things and extract more value, whether that's improve rooting from a winter wheat perspective, drive roots, increase surface area, more fine roots, give the plant the opportunity to go out and find new nutrition itself, opposed to having to feed it itself. And then in combination, once you put biostimulants in, the thing to remember is once you've built a bigger plant, you got to feed the bigger plant. So making sure we have a nutrition package in there is key to get that plant up, going, and drive that rooting. The focus there is get establishment and not build stem or stalk. We're looking specifically to drive rooting with this product. So get the plant up, get it going quickly. A lot of people asked biostimulant wise, what are you seeing out of those biostimulants? We usually say right around that 30-day mark. So activity obviously will shut down once the plant becomes inactive. Right around that 50-degree soil temp time is usually when things start to go dormant. So as long as we can get it up and going, we're going to have a better success of getting that plant through the winter into spring. And then once we hit spring and our growing degree days start to improve, we'll start to see that plant really take off because we've built this root system for it to be able to succeed.
That's a really good point, Carmen. I think we're seeding winter wheat typically on the Blues, that third week of September through mid-October. Hopefully we get some fall moisture here pretty quick. It's
Yeah.
pretty dry out there. But the goal is, if we can get that plant established, especially when we get the crown established going into winter, just seems like we set ourselves up for so much better yield potential that following year. I think PreCede is a very high use rate, 4.6 ounces. In fact, we started using it about 10 days ago in the seed plant, starting to get it on all the seed. It's going to be built into the seed price. We'll have seed prices here shortly. But I think one of the things you mentioned, that higher use rate, we really want to get that plant going, get that fall nutrition on it. I really like where it has a phosphate, 5% phosphate. I think 30-40% of our grower base, they don't have starter kits on their drills, so they're maybe putting phosphate out there, but they're deep banding it, 6 inches below that seed, with their nitrogen or thio. I think this, especially those growers that don't have, that starter capability, we're providing some nutrition right on that seed. Of course, it has 5% zinc. That's really important too, especially as a seedling. But anyway, with that higher use of PreCede, we're finding out it doesn't play real nice so far in the seed plants. We're working through the kinks, but seed guys are a little grumbly right now. I think we finally figured out how to get flowability with our Grand Slam package. I think looks like it's going to be really strong. Shannen, I think we talked about building that platform for that plant. Hopefully most of you watched our videos that we did this summer with the NutriScan gun, looking at plant deficiencies throughout the growing season. I think that's one thing that got us really excited with PreCede. This is that building block for next spring. So provide the nutrition for the plant going into winter. Of course, we're going to get the ground that freezes up. Plant's going to go dormant. When it breaks dormancy next spring, that's Shannen, that's kind of where you step in.
Yeah, no, that's been kind of my excitement with the PreCede, and I'll share kind of that roundabout in a second. But this year, I spent a lot of time with the ATP NutriScan, which we've talked about at the field day, and we'll talk about the grower meeting this winter. But it's a tissue gun that we're able to get in-field results. It uses near-infrared lighting. You can take that tissue sample in the field and get that response back in just a few minutes. And so I took a little less than 300 tissue samples across winter wheat this year. In almost 90% of them, there was commonality and deficiencies, and 3 of those commonalities were zinc, manganese, and boron. Almost every scan I took was deficient in one of those or all 3 of those. And so this year we focused on trying to correct those deficiencies in the growing season. But my excitement with the PreCede is how we can start that plant early, like you guys talked about, build that root structure underneath, build the potential for that plant. And then as it comes out of winter, we can start feeding it, and we don't have to be trying to play catch up all season long. But maybe this will give us an ability to have an angry plant coming out of winter and be able to feed that plant and start correcting those deficiencies even earlier and continue to maybe push yield. We've talked about it again at the growers meeting, but my focus has been looking at that Mulder's chart of antagonism that we've all seen and correcting all those deficiencies to make all those nutrients, macros and micros, work in synergy for the plant. And not having any tie-ups or antagonisms, but having all those work in synergy, making a more well-balanced plant and pushing yield that way. And so that's my excitement for the PreCede, is coming out of winter, being more balanced, having better root structure, more potential, and being able to feed that plant as we go through the growing season.
Shannen, talking about fertility, I think I mentioned it in my earlier presentation, but really wasn't variety specific. Of course, like we thought, later maturing varieties maybe didn't finish quite as good. One trend I did see pretty consistent throughout the Blues, those higher end growers, they're trying to put most of their fertility out in the fall, really trying to push that yield that way. I think in the long run, maybe this year or even the last couple of years with these warmer, drier summers, we tend to grow more vegetation with that higher fertility. And then just the plant doesn't have the moisture to finish the crop out. I think, one thing I'm telling growers down around Genesee, instead of maybe being that 120, 140 applied, back that off 20, 30%. applied this fall. I think that's where next spring we'll have a really closer idea what our summer forecast is going to be. Right now, it's kind of, up in the dark, to be quite honest. But, if we happen to maybe have that cooler, wetter summer, maybe we'll have a better idea in March, and then we can go out there, make those treatments to offset that.
No, that's great, Kyle. No, that's a really great point. So, yeah, we saw that throughout this season. In the last 2 years, the trend has been hot and dry. I think a lot of this where it's heavy fall applications for N, and especially this fall with the price of N going up, we want to be cautious of those inputs. But looking at the trends of the NutriScan this last year, we've left a lot of nitrogen on the table, and all that extra nitrogen has actually hurt us. We've seen test weight impacts or leaving yield on the table. And so our approach this year is just focusing on those efficiencies, maybe not putting all that in out front this fall and establishing that or evaluating that in the spring and seeing that potential and being able to spoon feed that crop. Again, that NutriScan technology, it gives us the ability to do that where we're not waiting on a 7 to 10 day tissue sample to come back, but we can come out, take that tissue sample, evaluate where the plant's at right in that moment, and be able to make that timely application, correct those deficiencies. And so, again, that's the efficiency I keep talking about is correcting those in a timely manner, and it gives us that ability to not put all that out in the fall, but be able to play a little bit of defense, and then come spring, evaluate where we're at, weather patterns, what's left in the tissue, and build that plant throughout the growing season when it requires it the most in a more timely application. So that's been kind of my focus with this, and I think PreCede is going to tie in really well with that.
If you look at our Grand Slam package that we've put out the last 3 or 4 years, every year we kind of fine tune it. Maybe we add a little more of one molecule, be it a fusarium product or whatever. I think Amplifier, that was a bio-stimulant. It was liquid biochar, a really good product. We saw a pretty good green up, with that wheat. Be it pretty much a carbon source. Carmen, I think with the PreCede, we're going to drop. We really want to try to hold the cost down on our seed price this fall. I think for the package that we're offering on the PreCede, it's a great value. I think I ran the numbers. It's about an 8-to-1 ROI. Carmen, I guess the 2 biostimulants, that's in the PreCede, I think we're pretty confident we're safe to drop the Amplifier out.
Yep. Yeah, so really what we're I guess I can talk a little bit more to the biostimulants themselves, but one specific, like I had mentioned previous, is a carbon source. We're able to kind of replace that product, so to speak, and then our plant extract product. So both of them in conjunction do great things together, but I don't want to go too much into it today, but at a grower meeting or something, we can really dive into the weeds of really what that product's doing. But like I said before, we're focus is how do we bring the ROI, and that's important to ATP. Our goal is to be trusted advisors, and it's how do we bring knowledge, expertise, look at things differently, and then really just find the right partner to bring that to market. So, like I said, like you said, you're tweaking things constantly evolving, looking for bringing a better solution to the field. And so that we are very appreciative of that. I'm sure most growers are as well.
Yeah, we'll just wrap it up. Carmen, thank you for coming. We thought making a big change on our seed tree package this fall, it would be great to have you come in, sit down, and really tell growers, the benefits from using it. I think, I really truly feel that, we are a partner with our growers. Not only do we want, our number one goal in our research is, to bring more bushels on the farm, but do that with positive ROIs. I mean, there's so many things out there, I've seen in my 30-year career where you're just really trading dollars, especially at these lower commodity values. So I think this is a great value. I wish we had on-demand treating. I think with all, 9 seed outlets and all the different varieties that we sell, maybe someday, after I'm gone, someone can figure out how to do that. So when you guys roll in, you can make that decision when you're loading the truck. But that's really why we really focus a lot of our research on seed treats. I've seen such a good value there in my career. So hopefully you guys trust what we're doing. We're really excited. I think everyone's going to see fantastic results with this. Like Shannen mentioned, we're just really building that platform for next year. Getting that plant, into winter, getting it into dormancy as big as we can get it, the biggest root system we can put under it. And then we'll see what happens next spring involved. So thank you for watching this. If you have any questions, please, give me a call personally, Shannen. We'll get you Carmen's number.
Call Shannen.
Yeah. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, guys.